There's a bizarre name that I keep seeing pop up on all of these hot boards to be Auburn's next head football coach.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining us as he does every Monday, it is the Lindsay Crosby over at the barn, auburn.com, as well as a million other places. Fascinating to hear what John Cohen and DJ Durkin, Auburn's interim head coach, what they will talk about later today, as well as, look, DJ Durkin is a guy that Auburn fans can get behind, whether it's just, for the short term or perhaps for the long term. We'll touch on that. But there's a weird name that keeps popping up on all of these hot boards that I'm seeing over and over and over again. Like Jon Sumrall makes sense.
Yep.
Kenny Dillingham of Arizona State makes sense. Brent Key of Georgia Tech makes sense. Alex Golesh of South Florida makes sense. James Franklin of Penn State makes sense. To some extent, I can get why you make the argument. I'm not agreeing with it, but I get it.
Yeah.
But there's one I keep seeing over and over and over again, and it's Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher as a candidate. Like, please no. Are you seeing this name pop up too?
Yeah, I've seen it. And here's the thing. Jimbo Fisher is Hugh Freeze. Let me make this case for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Jimbo Fisher is a more successful Hugh Freeze. But that's what he is.
Yep.
Right? Like,
yep.
He had a
I know where you're going with this. Yep.
He had a national championship, against Auburn. But just something where he's been a head coach multiple times. He had a dominant stretch when he was in Tallahassee at Florida State. Obviously, coincided with the national championship over us. Went to Texas A&M, recruited at an elite level.
Correct.
But his offenses were stuck in the past. He really could not get the production that he should have gotten based on the talent that he had. Went 11-11 his final two seasons. They fired him with a massive buyout.
Yep. Instead
of going to Liberty like Hugh did, he's just been on TV the last 2 years because he had a giant bit of money. But
watching Mike Elko come in and just be way better than him.
Yeah. But it's a good recruiter that used to be a very good offensive mind, that the last time we saw him, the offense had kind of passed him by, and he wants a chance to be a head coach again. He is the same thing you just fired.
Yes. I really want Auburn to hire somebody who hasn't been fired before. And I don't think that's a crazy thing to ask for. We've got this thing and it's coaching at all levels where you recycle these coaches. And Auburn's got to find a guy who's on the ascent and is cool, you're the guy. You're Auburn's head coach until you don't want to coach anymore, because people don't leave Auburn for better jobs. It's never happened before. And so I think I'm real big on Jon Sumrall. And we didn't really talk about him a ton in the live show that we did yesterday, but Eli Drinkwitz at Mizzou, I think that makes a ton of sense. He's got some Auburn ties. I think he was here under Gus. And we kind of poked at him for a little bit when he was at Missouri, because he kind of says and does some goofy things from time to time, but he's turned Mizzou into a solid program. And I think Auburn has more resources than Missouri. I think the fan base is way better than Missouri. Why couldn't he do that here?
He was with Gus more than just here for a little bit. He was a high school coach under Malzahn.
Okay, that's right.
And then he was quality control assistant here in 2010. We won the championship. He then went with Malzahn to Arkansas State in 2012 as the running backs coach. And then that's where they separated. He went from there to Boise State. Then he went to NC State as offensive coordinator. Then he went to Appalachian State and then Missouri. But he's literally from the Malzahn coaching tree. And here's the crazy thing. As an SEC head coach, he gave up offensive play calling. And do you know what happened the year he gave up offensive play calling?
Tell me.
They made that giant jump in 2023.
So much about this modern age of college football is there's a few guys that can do it.
Yeah.
And props to them. And they're the elite. They're these special human beings, and they're the psychopaths that are they're perfect for this. They were made to do this. But a lot of these, the more sustainable model is to get a guy who understands how to build a program, obviously knows ball, can help with, game planning on both sides of the football, but you have to delegate all of this stuff. You can't be a coordinator on either side of the ball and a politician and a fundraiser and, building all of the recruiting boards and scouting for the portal. I mean, we could go list by list of all of these things that they've got to do. And you just can't do it all anymore. And you focus on keeping your own roster, and you got to worry about NIL now. Like, it's so much more than it used to be. So a guy like Eli Drinkwitz, who's adapting, but Jimbo Fisher has done the opposite of that. As your point, he's like a more successful Hugh Freeze, but like, we don't need any of that. We want somebody who can show that they can adjust. I think Jon Sumrall shown some examples of that. Obviously going from Troy to Tulane. Kenny Dillingham, I think, is kind of in the same boat. And then, Brent Keith's been fantastic. I know they lost to Duke over the weekend. And then obviously Alex Golish is going to end up somewhere. I don't think it'll be Auburn, but he's going to end up at a much better job than South Florida. But
by the way,
yes,
USF, not in South Florida. You know how many schools are south of USF? Half the ones in the state. USF's in Tampa.
Yeah, Tampa's like in the middle of the state, right?
Yeah, just want to throw that out there. Just USF, not South Florida.
Yeah, I feel like USF should be in Miami.
Yeah, USF should be in Miami.
I don't think that's a crazy thing to say.
Central Florida, 60 miles south of South Florida, and then half the state. Yeah, just want to throw it out there.
I'm glad that you did. I think that's important that you did that. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Listen, can I give you my Jon Sumrall comparison when you look back at Auburn history?
Yes.
Okay. From a previous Auburn coach that his stuff resembles, and just hear me out here, people. Pat Dye. From the perspective of the background, Pat Dye had been at East Carolina and Wyoming. Before that, he played at Georgia and was an assistant at Alabama. Sumrall played at Kentucky, was an assistant at Kentucky, coached in the FCS Group of Five, coached at Ole Miss, coached at Kentucky, then Troy and Tulane. Like, played in the SEC, has experience in the state of Alabama. Small school head coach, a defensive guy who's in his 40s. Like, he fits the model of what Pat Dye was when you hired him. I'm not saying hire Jon Sumrall. I'm not opposed to it.
I'm saying hire Jon Sumrall. I'm
pointing out the similarities here.
Tinfoil hat. Can I put a tinfoil hat on for a second?
Please. I love tinfoil hats.
Auburn lost to Kentucky because they wanted Jon Sumrall, and they were afraid that Kentucky would fire Stoops. And they would get him.
Conspiracy theory.
Why not?
If they knock off Vanderbilt, is it so that Vandy gets mad at Clark Lee and Auburn can go try to grab Clark Lee?
So Clark Lee's interesting. He's done an incredible job.
Reminds me of Tommy Tuberville.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I don't know if Clark Lee's I want to see Clark Lee win without Diego Pavia.
Okay, I'll give you that.
I'm not saying he's off. Like, I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I'm saying he's a good coach, but I'd like to see.
They didn't have the breakthrough until Pavia got there. Yeah. They didn't have the breakthrough until Pavia got there, and they haven't shown the success.
But also,
Pavia.
Is it fair to fault a coach because they nailed their QB eval?
I feel
like if a coach always has a good quarterback, but he's only had one so far. But I think that's worth this. I think that's worth a discussion. We'll talk about Clark Lee more at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So
just the similarities in him and Tommy Tuberville make a lot of sense. Like a sitting head coach in an SEC program that's considered to be a tier below Auburn. He's won head coach of the year, former defensive coordinator, kind of runs an old school kind of thing. They do a lot of ball control, solid defense kind of stuff. Doesn't really it just reminds me a lot of Tommy Tuberville when Auburn hired him out of Ole Miss. The whole
okay, I got you. I got you. No, we'll talk a lot about Vandy later in the week for sure.
Yep.
With all this being said, DJ Durkin is a guy Auburn can get behind, whether it's in the short term or the long term. I think the fit makes sense because look, Auburn wants to rally behind someone. Mm-hmm. That's next right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, Lindsay. I can't imagine buying tickets anywhere other than with our friends at Game Time.
It is the absolute best place to buy tickets. I know people who were grabbing tons of tickets for Kentucky over the weekend because Game Time had the best prices anywhere for them. And guess what? I'm willing to bet you that tickets for Auburn's next home matchup are probably higher in price than they were 2 days ago.
Oh, you think there's going to be energy now because of Durkin?
Every time we've seen the end of the season under an interim coach, there's been a boost.
Yeah, that would be Mercer.
Excitement. Yep,
that'd be Mercer for sure. Check it out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Alumni Hall. I can't imagine buying Auburn gear anywhere other than with our friends at Alumni Hall. They've got 3. Did you buy that hat from Alumni Hall? You just pointed to it.
Yes. That's swinging obby. The Alumni Hall. Yeah.
The rope hat. That's a thing. Alumni Hall. They've got like the entire back wall of their Tigertown location. It's like just a hat wall.
Best kind of wall there is. My favorite kind of wall is a hat wall.
Sure. I'm fine with that. They got 3 great physical locations in Auburn, Opelika, and Huntsville, and of course online at alumnihall.com. Yes, Lindsay Crosby?
They'll say, what if I don't live in Auburn, Opelika, or Huntsville? Like, how do I get
answered the question? I think I answered it. Alumnihall.com. No, that's a great question, and I think we should reemphasize it one more time. Alumnihall.com. Thank you so much for making Locked on Auburn your first listen every single day. Auburn fans are dying to get behind someone. And we saw this at the end of the Brian Harsin era. Now, I think the Cadillac situation was a little more dramatic because Caddy's an Auburn legend, right? And that was such a cool moment. And obviously, the Auburn Texas A&M game. I've got the picture of him running next to Tank again in the A&M game behind me if you're watching on YouTube. Like such an iconic memory in Auburn. And like you knew it as it was happening. Like this is going to be a part of Auburn lore for forever. Like we're going to talk about this game. DJ Durkin's not going to really get that against Mercer, but he might get a little bit of a bump for the Iron Bowl. He might. Especially if they go on the road and beat Vandy. Cadillac had a chance to go on the road and beat Mississippi State, if my timeline is correct, and it was super, super close, and then they just couldn't get it done. They're going to have a chance to beat Vandy. They have the guys to beat Vandy. Can you change your offensive identity in a week? No, you can't. But you can change your mentality. You can change a few things. Like you saw, they chose to go like heavy run after Harsin was fired. Curious to see if they kind of make some sort of dramatic shift there since it's going to be a new play caller. But we'll see. We'll see exactly what that happens. But to me, Auburn fans are so loyal. Auburn fans are so loyal, and they want to love their head coach. And the way Hugh Freeze, 1, performed in games, and 2, the messaging over the last year has just been awful. DJ Durkin's not going to do that. And I think that's something that's going to be good for Auburn, especially in the short term. And we'll see how it goes for the long term.
I was prepared to come on here before Hugh got fired and rant about the whole thing, kind of the complaining about not getting the patience when he talked after the game on Saturday. And I'm like, brother, it's year 3. The time for giving you patience is gone. But
like, bro, again, you were about to get $15 million. You are not the victim here.
Yeah. But, it's fine.
He's gone. It's gone. It's over. It's over.
He's gone. It's fine. Yeah. We're moving on. With Durkin, I do feel like, and we don't have nearly as much exposure to him in press conferences and things like that as we've had for Hugh.
Yeah.
But I feel like Hugh, for better or for worse, and I think we've seen both sides of this, Hugh has always been very just open. He's laid everything kind of bare about, hey, this was good, this wasn't good, we could have done this better, et cetera, et cetera. And as a person who has covered teams and coaches and things like that, you appreciate that. But when things are not going well, it's not always well received. And I do feel like Durkin is going to be better about the way that he words things, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying he's going to start like lying or making excuses or anything, but being able to, like, you can admit that the team wasn't good enough without blaming a specific person or player or situation or anything.
Correct.
Like that. And I do think one of Hugh's flaws, again, for better or for worse, as a member of the media, I appreciate this, but was the inability to objectively stand back and say collectively we failed. And I do think that rubs people the wrong way when things are going wrong.
Yeah. And even some of the stuff were just like the awareness of, saw a lot of people pull out the interview he did with the next round guys after the golf thing, where like, I know I got to make a bowl game. It's like, have just a little bit of awareness with this. Like that would have helped a lot. Still, like if you score 3 points against Kentucky, it doesn't matter. But I think the combination of those things, or all the the average Auburn fan was like, please get out of here. Please leave. And so Durkin's not going to do that. He's going to act like a head coach, which is nice. I think, at least in the interim, I think he's going to be solid there from like an optic standpoint. As far as on the field, I don't know what reasonable, I'm going to be honest, I don't know what reasonable expectations are for him. Because the most likely scenario is 1 and 2. You lose to Vandy, you beat Mercer, you lose to Alabama. Like that is anything over that. Like that seems like a pretty straight line that I don't think anybody's going to argue with. Like anything over 1 and 2 is a win. Mm-hmm. And then is that win enough to say, like you beat a pretty good team on the road? Should we hire you full time? Or if he beats Alabama at home, like I don't know how you don't hire him. And so is it truly an audition? Like, I think it's a super interesting concept here.
I do think he ends up being a candidate. I think, and I'm going to take this back. I know that sometimes people complain that I do this. I'm going to take this back to when the Atlanta Braves fired Freddie Gonzalez for Brian Stinker. Stinker was the interim for the rest of the season. Said it was 2016, maybe.
People don't like it when you bring up baseball. Is that what the notice?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes they're like, you always bring it back to baseball. I'm like, I'm literally baseball is Lindsay Crosby. And the reason that Brian Stinker got the full-time job was because the players were the ones who advocated for him. Freddie Freeman, Nick Markakis, so a lot of the veterans went to the team, went to ownership, went to the GM, and said, we want Stinker to be the guy. I feel like that's the situation if Durkin gets the job. Is it either they play Alabama really close, they beat them, whatever, and the players are the ones that go and say, hey, either it's guys who could transfer, who say, I will stay and play for Durkin, or it's just a flood of players say the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, with this guy were phenomenal, and I want him to lead us, and we'll do whatever it takes to make sure he's the guy. I don't know.
I mean, the players are going to have way more sway
than they would have 5 years ago.
Yeah. And more than they probably should in this situation. But I think DJ Durkin's so proven where it's like, oh, yeah, okay, I think it makes sense. Like if
it's different if you try to do that on a guy who's never been a head coach before. I do think it is different to do it for Durkin because he's been a head coach. He's done this before at a high level.
Yeah.
And I do think you still have to nail your hires. You still have to nail your offensive coordinator hire because you need a guy to kind of run that side of the ball and everything for Durkin. But I do think that's the scenario where if not just the fans get behind Durkin and the team, but the team gets behind Durkin, that's where his future really ends up being.
I would think in that scenario, you almost give Durkin's money, like the DC money, to the OC, and you say, hey, you can be one of the highest paid offensive coordinators in college football.
And do your own
because then you would be paying Durkin to be the head coach.
I'm
cool with all that. What are John Cohen and DJ Durkin going to say today, and what do we want to know and learn? That's next right here on Locked on Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. I can't imagine wagering on sports anywhere else. The line for Auburn at Vandy. Auburn is a 7.5-point dog against Vandy. And I Right now, I would almost pick Auburn to cover that, if I'm being 100% honest with you. The over-under 46.5, boy, does that seem high to me. I don't know if anything could like make me not take the under for Auburn totals for the rest of the year. I'm just going to be 100% real with you.
I mean, that intimidating environment that Vanderbilt has at home. So like, how loud that stadium is when it's packed full of, 37 fans. So
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I lost my spot on my copy. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. John Cohen, DJ Durkin, scheduled to speak to the media at 1:30 this afternoon. That is when Hugh Freeze would typically speak to the media. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit of a change. And so John Cohen, at least speaking, I assume he'll answer some questions as well. To me, like, I want to hear, like, what was the final straw? There's a report coming out that they tried to settle the buyout after Missouri, the loss to Missouri, and Hugh Freeze essentially said no, which I don't blame him for. Why would you take less money when you don't have to? He had all the leverage in that situation.
Yeah, no reason to say no.
So I'm sure he's going to be asked about that. And then for DJ Durkin, like, a lot of the questions I'm sure are going to be like, what's it mean to, how's it feel to be a head coach again and all that stuff. But I'd love to know who's calling plays. I think that's the main thing I would like to learn later today. I'm going to be 100% honest with you.
Yeah, is one, calling plays on offense, I think is the big thing. But two, I do want to know, is Durkin still going to coordinate the defense himself?
I can't imagine anything would change with the defense.
Yeah, it feels like it's like, hey, just add on this extra thing for the rest of the season, and then we'll reevaluate. I do also want to hear, and I don't know if it'll get asked or not, I'm sure it will. I do want to also hear, have they already spoken to all of the recruits that we had committed in the class? Not that the class was huge. Have they already spoken to the recruits, and what kind of feedback did they get there? We've seen some of the reports come out from some of the recruiting sites.
Yeah.
But a lot of the players understood that it was going to happen and they're okay with it, et cetera, et cetera. They're still interested in Auburn, all that good stuff. I also want to hear from Cohen his plans, and I don't think he'll address it, honestly, but his plans about filling the job, right? Does he intend to collect a bunch of former legends and make a committee? Is this going to be him with the help of a search firm? Like, what is this search going to look like? And I imagine we won't get a lot of specifics today, but I'm really curious to know how this search is going to be done. Because I feel like
I think I'm anti-committee, by the way.
I probably am too. I just feel like the last couple searches have been very driven by one person. Alan Green drove on his own, really drove the Brian Harsin thing. He kind of went rogue and did that. And then Freeze was really, Cohen was just kind of driving the ship, trying to get lane, couldn't get lane. And they pivoted.
I don't have an issue with the process.
Yeah. I'm just curious to hear.
And I get both hires, if I'm being 100%, like, in real time, like, I understood both. They just didn't work for whatever reason.
And so the fact that
go ahead.
Cohen made that hire of Hugh and it didn't work makes me want to know, is he going to try the same process again or do something different? That's kind of where I'm going with that is not that I didn't like, it made sense to me too when he did it, but is he going to try something different, or does he think it was just like, I know where I made the mistake last time, let me fix that, or let me change the process to make sure that I don't make the same mistake,
Yeah, I get that. The process just seems insignificant to me. It's like, you either can nail it or you don't. It's kind of like, okay, everybody talks about development. Then I'm like, okay, yeah, development's important. Or if you just nail it with like evaluating JUCOs and transfers, I don't really care. Like, I don't really care if you need to get a high school quarterback and develop them, keep them in the system for 2 years, and then it's their turn. Or just every time you need a quarterback, if you go to the portal and get one. Like, I don't care. Just get a good quarterback on the
Just
field.
evaluate.
The process does not matter to me.
Whatever guy you get, evaluate him correctly.
Yeah, if you want to go get former legends and, get Bo Jackson and, Charles Barkley and, if you want to get Cam involved and like all these legends, which we've done in the past, and say, okay, like, who do y'all want? And they nail it. Great. I also don't care if John Cohen's like, no, I'm the AD. I'm ready to stake my like tenure on this decision. And he nails it. I'm like, okay, great. Awesome. I don't really care. I am curious though, if he does get that information or not.
Yeah. And it's not so much I care which one he does. I'm just curious as to, does he change from what he did last time, right? If he comes out and says, I hired the last one, it didn't work, I'm going to hire this one. Okay, great. You're convinced that you have the confidence you can get this right. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. I just kind of want to hear from him.
Yeah, and look, in those interviews, like I'm sure Hugh Freeze laid out his plan, and we all thought the plan made sense. Like, let's rebuild it from the ground up with recruiting and the portal. Let's raise money and let's let Auburn athletes or Auburn football players be some of the highest paid Auburn or college football players in the country. That's what we did. And it's like, if we all said, hey, 3 years from now, you're going to have all like top 5 to top 10 recruiting classes, and you're going to have top 5 transfer portal classes. And in my 3rd year, I'm going to go out and get a guy who is one of the top quarterback recruits ranked ever. We'd all be like, yeah, that's probably going to work.
It just didn't.
And it just didn't. And it sucks.
It just didn't.
You know,
because
John Cohen
how to do the other part of the job.
To like hire an OC that we could have relied on to call plays. Maybe that's something John Cohen does differently this time. But I also would like to know the answer, because once again, I don't care what the answer is, but show me and show the Auburn fan base that you have a plan. Show me that you've got a plan, because that was kind of the big thing when we fired Gus. There was no plan. When we fired Harsin, there seemed to be a plan. Let's see if there's a plan now. I would like to see that be communicated later today.
Yeah, the plan was Lane last time, and it didn't work out. For better or for worse.
Still a plan.
Still a plan.
Don't have an issue with it. Yeah.
It is a plan. And given how many other openings there are right now, I do think your plan matters. And again, I don't think it's going to be the exact same pools you're pulling from for Auburn as you do for LSU or for Florida, things like that. But I do think on a compensation basis, it could matter, right? You may have to pay more for a guy because he has another option where he might not have had it in the previous season. But yeah, I just want to know the plan, and I want to know all of that. I am curious. I don't think it comes up. I think this is the kind of thing we'll get later on down the road in like an investigative story. But I'm curious if they had conversations over the offseason about adding an offensive coordinator, and it did, and Cohen couldn't get Hugh to do it. I'm curious about that. It's not going to come up today. There's no way they'd bring that up in this press conference. But I'm curious to know if that's something that they talked about. And does Cohen now think you need a CEO type? Matter of fact, I know that everybody, both the admin, the team, the media, everybody listens to this show. This is where news is made. I will pay any media member $20 if you ask that question. Ask him if he thinks that Auburn needs a CEO type head coach going forward. Ask John Cohen that. I will Venmo you $20.
How about that?
Or 30 to the charity of your choice.
How about that?
Yeah.
Lindsay Crosby, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
I'm on social media at Crosby Baseball. A lot of Brave stuff. Free agency starts this week. BravesToday.com and the Braves Today podcast. Yes. And then all the Auburn baseball stuff, thebarnauburn.com.
Please like the video. Please subscribe. And we'll see you next time. This has been Locked on Auburn.